Hi, my name is Jim Tennant and I am applying for the job of Learning Facilitator at the Opportunity of Design located at Hope High School. The instructions for this video is to relay how I am and who I am as an educator. I think in order to know that, you really have to know who I am. I'm also in the leadership program at Rick right now, and one of the assignments there was to come up with core values about ourselves that would indicate the way we would lead. And I think that these core values would also apply to the classroom. And when I wrote this paper, I thought it was going to be easy, but then it became very personal, and I do look at these core values as myself, how I live, and how I will educate. They wanted us to prioritize these values, but with me there was no prioritizing because they're all interwoven. And the symbol that I chose was an infinity knot, which is an ancient Sanskrit knot that has no beginning and no end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain my core values one by one and how they apply to the classroom. This should give you an indication of who I am as a person and how I will be as an educator. The first one is realize. Realize that people are different. Generally, people look at themselves and they think their way of thinking is the only way of thinking. You have to realize, especially in the classroom, that you're dealing with anywhere from 18 to 30 kids with different histories, different economic backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, and we as educators need to be keenly aware of this. We are not the only person in the world. We are one of millions and millions, and as educators, it's very important to know that. The second one is everything you say affects a child, and I've learned this through my lifetime. Whether it's negative or positive, whatever you say, that child listens. In the classroom, a student listens. He also or she also looks at the way that you hold yourself, model yourself, react to things, and they'll take something away from that. Soon, it might not be then, it might not be till later, it may be never, but we have to be very sure of what we're saying and be aware of what we're saying, because it could be, the consequences could be very great. Thirdly, the job always gets done. I was in printing for 30 years, 28 plus years, and I found that the job always does get done. It may not get done correctly, but it gets done. So if we look at the classroom as a job, which I think it's more than a job, you know that class is going to end, that year is going to end, that semester or term is going to end. So our job as educators is to make sure that it ends on a positive note, give everything that we can to the student, give them the tools, the resources to succeed. The job will get done. Hopefully it gets done positively. Fourthly, the only one you truly control is yourself. Personally, I have kids, I'm married, I cannot control my own kids, I cannot control my wife, I cannot control the students in the class to a point. I can control myself. It's the way that I react to what's going on. If there is a problem in the classroom, behavioral problem, say, it's the way I can only react the way I can react. I can control the way I react. The same thing with academics. If I see a student who is failing or having trouble, I can react and say that he's lazy or something. But it's probably not that, but it's the way that I react to this that is going to be consequential for the student. Fifthly is be kind. It sounds simple, but I find that people go around in life and they're not happy, they're miserable, they're just have a bad influence on people. I tell my students, someone told me once, go down the street for one day and say hi to everyone you meet and just see the look on their faces, which I did, and it's amazing. I challenged my students last year at Del Sesto for 1 week I challenge them to, when they're in the hallways, to shake hands, smile, say hi to everyone. And then at the end of the week we spoke, and they were amazed. They were amazed at how good they felt. They were amazed at how the other kids felt. And it was a general feeling of unity and good-naturedness in that classroom for that week. It was actually a great thing to do for them. Sixth is Ripple. Robert Kennedy's speech on apartheid in the 60s has to do with Ripple. And what his premise was that every great cause starts with a little spark, an idea, and it ripples out. And I chose this for my core values, especially, this was for the classroom, but with a student, we as teachers are able to spark an interest. That could turn into the next Einstein. It could turn into a great fireman. Just one little spark will cause a ripple. On the other hand, if we don't cause it, it may stifle it. Do not fear. I believe that ego controls the man and fear runs ego. Personally, I don't fear anything. I really don't. I shouldn't say that. I don't fear most things. I've been through a few things in my life that are very tragic, and after they've occurred, I don't concentrate on the petty anymore. I see the big picture, which I will explain in my next core value. But especially with the students, teach them, do not fear to fail. I always point to Einstein and all the great playwrights like O'Neill or Sinatra. And I tell my students, they have failed. It never stopped them. The only thing that stops someone from succeeding is not trying. It's a great quote that I love. In youth we learn, in age we understand. And it's the old saying that, you know, when I was young, my father was the stupidest man in the world, but as I get older, he became the smartest man around. When kids are young, they take in everything. They just don't understand it. And I've known this through my life too. You're just immersed in information, and it's just coming at you from all. It's coming from your teachers, from your parents, from your peers, socially. Now with social media, you're getting all this data just pushed into your brain. And it takes years until your brain can process that information and make sense of it. And I think as teachers we have to be very aware of this, that we can, that it's not going to develop overnight. When a student is having trouble, it's not that because he's not getting it, maybe he isn't getting it, or she isn't getting it, but maybe she's just not getting it now, but eventually she or he will. I've always felt this with me, think on your feet. I've been in situations where you have to think on your feet. If you don't, you're in big trouble. In the classroom, especially with kids, it's a constant process of teaching, of kids coming in late, of curriculums changing, of an administrator coming in, a fire drill, whatever, someone gets sick, you have to think on your feet. Maybe the district changes the curriculum. And you gave this right in the interview, what do I do if the curriculum changes the day before school starts? Well, if that happens, it happens, but you just have to use the tools and the resources that you have to adapt. And you will adapt. If you're going to resist it, you're not going to be successful. You have to be able to think on your feet. Stop and take a breath. I've learned through my life to never knee-jerk react. Usually when you knee-jerk react, it doesn't produce the results you're looking for. You need to step back, survey and assess the situation, and then react. So again, stop and take a breath, and the only thing you control is yourself. Work together. They're interwoven. You need to process what's going on, see what the issue is, and react from that point. Be large in thought, in word, in deed. People constantly concentrate on the petty, the small things in life. I prefer to look at the big picture, and you could look at a classroom as, much like this one, as just a classroom of 30 kids, and they're going to go on to the next step. But I view it as a snapshot of society in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. They are going to be part of the society. What we do as educators is directly going to affect what the world looks like in 10, 20, 30, or 40 years. So we have to be very aware of this. We have to be keenly aware of that. Think the big picture. That's what I do. I think big. Live in the now. I'm not one to look at the past and dwell on it. I look at the past a little and see if I have a failure or a problem or an issue. What the cause was, I don't dwell on it. I live in the now. I take the resources that I have. I may take input from different people, what's going on in society, and I assess where we are now, and I look to the future. I say do this with kids. Kids come into class, they come from all different backgrounds, all different academic levels. And again, here's what I have, here's what I need to do to get to the next step. That's how I approach that last core value. So, to recap this, I think to know me as an educator, you need to know me as a person. I welcome the opportunity to get to this level of the interview process. I've done a little research on, actually a lot of research on what you're trying to do here. It would be great to get in on the ground level of a new idea. I think that sustainability and constant adaptation is key to this process and to this school, and I would love to be a part of it. Thank you very much.